Hi, welcome to episode 43 of 365 of A Couple of Things in 2024. Today I'm going to be talking about how I am approaching goal setting and why I'm using this approach and how I can already see how it's helping me in getting closer to my goals. I've touched a bit on some of these things in some previous episodes of the podcast, but now I'm going to just take a big picture look at everything. And there are a couple of things that I think about or that I have been thinking about for the past year or so in how I set goals, how I look at the things that I want to do, and how I approach actually doing them. So the first thing is to know why, to really understand why I want to be at that end point or why I want to get whatever it is I want to get at the end. So for example, I want to learn Dutch and I want to be at B2 proficiency by the end of the year. And why I want to do that is because I live in the Netherlands and I plan to live here for the foreseeable future. That may change, who knows what will happen, but for now, that's where I am. And learning Dutch improves my job opportunities and reduces competition for me in jobs that require Dutch. It just makes sense for me. It's very practical and financially motivated to learn Dutch. I mean, you can have whatever reason for wanting to achieve a goal. It could be altruistic, it could be to feel good about yourself, it could be just cash, whatever it is. It's important to be honest about the why. It shouldn't be like, oh, it is expected of me as a person that does ABC to have a goal of 1, 2, 3. Like, don't do that because you most likely, it's not, for most people, that's not a strong enough fire. And it gets to the point where you're like, I don't care enough to keep doing this. So when you're looking at the goal that you have, think about the why. Why is this important? Why do I want to do this? What does it mean for me? Because that's the thing that keeps you going on the times where you are exhausted and tired and you want to give up. The second thing is to be realistic. We often set goals in life like as if everything goes on a linear path and nothing can ever come up. Like the way you have planned this in your mind is exactly how it will happen in real life and everything will happen in a particular order all the time. But as we know, life is messy. Things happen that you didn't plan for, you didn't foresee, that you didn't think of when you were making your grand plans in life. And we often don't consider that when we are setting our goals and thinking about all the 1 million things we want to achieve in a month, in a year, in 10 years. Again, classic example is COVID. I don't think many people pictured or planned COVID in their taking over the world plans and doing all the great things that they want to do plans. So if, for example, you have a goal of you want to sleep earlier every day, maybe you don't set a goal of sleeping at 8 p.m. if you have a job that means you have to be working in the nights. Like, think about the context of your life, your real life situation, not the ideal life that you would like to have in your actual real life, and give yourself room in how you set your goals so that it aligns and it is realistic for the life that you have. Not realistic in the sense that this goal is something that people think is wild and unachievable, but something that's realistic in the sense of it takes into consideration the actual context of your life. So, for example, if you have a very physically intense job or you have other responsibilities outside of work, like taking care of family, whether parents, children, whatever, don't set a goal to work out 3 hours every day. Like, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to achieve that given the other considerations of your life. And then that means that if you're not constantly doing the thing, then you will feel more discouraged and then just let it go eventually. And if it's possible for you to change things about your life and your context and your situation so that you can achieve the goal, then do that. Sometimes it's not very easy, but sometimes you can actually change your situation so that you can achieve the goal. So maybe if you're taking on too many side projects, maybe drop off some of them to focus on the other goal that you think is more important for you. At the same time, number 3, stretch yourself. Stretch the limits of your imagination and what you think is possible. And this is, again, not in terms of the practicalities of you doing the thing or achieving the goal, is about giving yourself a stretch goal, something that stretches you. And all your goals can't be stretch goals. If all your goals are stretch goals, it will be challenging to keep up, and then you feel discouraged. Well, I can't say that all your goals can't be. You can choose to make all your goals stretch goals, but based on how I've been looking at things for the past couple of years, and especially in the past year, I've just realized that giving myself making all my goals stretch goals has been hectic and demoralizing for me. So I know that doing B2 Dutch by the end of this year is a stretch goal for me, and it is still possible even though it's a stretch goal. So just try to challenge yourself while at the same time thinking about the context of your real life. Number 4, creating milestones and accountability systems. Something that I have learned is that it's very important to be accountable and stay accountable. That's what actually helps you stay on track, in addition to the internal motivation of knowing your why. So it could be having friends that, if you have a friend who is also working on a similar goal or even something different, where you can maybe spend 1 hour, 90 minutes on a call, and you're not talking to each other on this call, you're doing the thing that you need to do. So if your goal is to write a book and the other person's goal is to run a marathon, for example, I'm just giving wild examples here, you can get on that call for 1 hour and you're writing your chapter of your book or your draft, and then your friend is running on their treadmill or something. The important thing is that is a way to keep yourself accountable and to someone else, not just yourself. So even if you don't want to show up, you think about your friend who is showing up, and you can be 2 people, you can be more than 2 people, but it's not a call to discuss and catch up on life. It's to focus on what you're trying to achieve. And there are all these apps about like that can lock you out of other apps so that you can have focus time. You can check in with your mentors. You can tell somebody who you respect and admire, and that you don't want to look bad in front of that person, and tell them that this is what you're going to do, so that when you're thinking of slacking, you're like, there's this person that I've already told I'm going to do this thing, and if I don't do it, they will not see me in a good way anymore. Whatever it is that you find is something that can hold you accountable externally, basically find that and do that. One example that I have done and that I've heard a lot of people talk about is like sending money to someone and saying that if I don't do this by XYZ date, then you can have the money. And it has to be an amount that will actually like motivate you to complete the thing, right? And in the coaching community I belong to, many people have talked about how they've used this to get things done. And one of the things, and most importantly, you have to be accountable to yourself. There's a thing that my coach DDK says, is that you have to have enough self-respect for yourself to do the thing that you say you will do. So yes, have accountability systems and people that can keep you accountable. But at the end of the day, because you can lie. If you have a mentor, you can lie to your mentor and say you've done the thing that you said you were going to do, even if you've not done it. So it's important to be able to also be accountable to yourself. And the milestones part, which is kind of part of the accountability thing, is to celebrate. When you have milestones, then you should celebrate when you've achieved like a part of the goal. So with my learning Dutch to B2, for example, I can't just appear at B2. I have to get to A1 and then A2 and then B1 and then B2. And so I'm going to celebrate at every milestone, which is getting A1, B1, A1, A2, B1, and B2. So think of ways that you can celebrate the milestones that you have accomplished in the process of achieving your goal. Which takes me to the last part, and which I've talked about multiple times on this podcast already, is focusing on process, not the outcome. When we set goals or the outputs, when we set goals that have like an output or an outcome, like in my case, like I've talked about, unendingly getting to B2 proficiency in Dutch, if we don't then achieve that goal, we may feel bad, even if we put in all the efforts and we've spent time and done the right things. And that feeling bad may lead us to the point where it's like, there's no point, I'm just going to give up and not even try to do anything anymore. And you see this a lot in like fitness goals, when you're like, oh, I'm going to lose 10 kg or 20 kg or whatever. If you do all the quote unquote the right things, but you still don't hit that 10 kg, if you hit 9 kg or 8 kg, or maybe your goal was 20 kg and you hit 18 kg, for some reason, we don't focus on the parts where it's like, I got to 18 kg out of my 20 kg. We always focus on I didn't hit that 20 kg goal. And then it's like, there's no point, life is meaningless, and blah, blah, blah. But if you focus more on the habits that you're developing, the things that you're doing, because things are not always in your control. There are things that may be out of your control. I talked about in a previous episode where, for example, if your goal is to get a promotion, that's the outcome. If you focus only on the outcome, what if something happens that's outside of your control? That means that even though you do everything perfectly, you don't still get that promotion. If you focus more on the fact that if I do my work well, if I'm showcasing the work that I'm doing, if I'm engaging with my team, if I am being visible in my company, all these kinds of things, those are the process goals, so to say, or as some other people put it, the inputs, things that you're inputting to get at your outcome, your desired outcome. Those things are still things that are valuable, whether you hit that outcome or not. And so if you focus on the process through which you will end up achieving that goal and you're consistent with it, it's still valuable, even if you don't hit that, getting the promotion or getting the raise or losing 10 kg or getting to beat to Dutch. Because even if in the case of maybe trying to lose weight, if you do the things that you're meant to do, right, like eating healthy, doing some, moving your body, eating well, and all of those things, even if you don't lose 10 kg, you've built that habit of being healthy and fit, right? You're doing the things that make you healthy and fit, and it applies across your life. If you look at the example of the promotion as well, even if you may not get that promotion, the habits that you've built in doing your work well, talking about it, engaging with people, you can apply that elsewhere to something else, like getting a new job or some other benefits, and also you're developing yourself as a person. The thing to note here, though, is that in thinking about your input or process goals, you have to think about it as something that you can do daily or weekly or fortnightly, but ideally something that you do at least weekly, maybe it's 3 times a week or once every day, like just something that you do consistently. So for me, with Dutch, for example, is I practice Dutch 15 minutes every day with an app, and then I'm doing Dutch classes once a week. So that is like building my consistency in learning Dutch. If your goal is like developing your friendships or whatever, maybe you dedicate time once a week to call a particular friend, and then next week you call a different friend, and on and on. So basically just like thinking of something you can do daily, weekly, consistently to arrive at the outcome, even if you don't arrive at the outcome. Even if you don't arrive at the outcome. Oh. Okay, bye. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of A Couple of Things. If you enjoyed this episode or found any part of it insightful, don't forget to share with your friends on your social media, and be sure to leave a comment or a review if you can on your podcast listening app. Thank you.